make sure you subscribe, click that little bell icon to be notified of upcoming videos, support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook and Instagram at Model Railroad Techniques. Please have a look at my new website, www.modelrailroadtechniques.com. Howdy guys, Darren from MRT here and welcome back. So in this episode number 3 we're going to be looking at how I apply the signs to this wooden structure and weathering up. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the next thing that I probably need to look at is the signs. So I'm not going to go overboard regarding these signs. I'm not going to make my own signs at this point in time, so I'm just going to use it. So I find a neat little tool. So these are called squizzes. I bought them online. I will put a link below. I can't remember exactly where I got them, but they're actually designed for cutting out decals. So obviously something like this where you want a nice, very neat sort of cut, like this sign here. It's just adding a little bit of pressure. Sort of is how it works. So it's just a matter of going through the sign. Now this is obviously quite thick paper, so I'll show you a little technique that I learnt how to sort of meld these in a little bit more. So this sign appears that it might be just a little bit wide, too wide. So what I'll do a rough cut through. Those are the ones aside, and then I'll go back in. So probably for another video. I haven't really got into making signs, but I know a lot of guys out there are using, your Photoshops and your GIMP to make all different signs. As I said, I've yet to sort of get into that side of the hobby. So it's just a matter of making sure that one, you got a straight line the best you can, but there's no white on the side, because that'll throw off your perspective. So as you can see, that is just a fraction too wide, so that's going to have to be cut down just a little bit more. So as I said, this next technique I learnt from Jason Jensen, on one of his videos. So I've never tried it before, so we'll see how we go with it. It might look silly, might not work, but this is what this video is all about, is giving everything a go and putting it out there and getting feedback to what people reckon. So first thing I need to find is some sandpaper, so I'll be right back. What I'm going to use is 120 grit sandpaper. So the idea of what we're trying to do here is trying to make this paper as thin as we can, so almost decal-like, I suppose. That's obviously the other option, to make it into a decal, or if you're going to print it out on paper, use the thinnest paper you can get. But obviously that has its inherent issues with taking the colour and the like, so it's just a matter of working your way through, and that's coming down quite thin as we speak. So just be a little bit careful you don't go sort of overboard in regards to doing this, because you don't want to put a hole in it either, unless that's the effect you're after. Just make sure you work out to the edges, because that's probably where it's going to get its thinnest. Sorry, so the next thing we're going to look at doing is actually sticking this sign onto the side. So just got some white Elmer's glue there. Now this unfortunately is the school variety, so it is a little bit watered down already, but basically what you want to do is make a consistency of, it's sort of like a paste. So probably not the best medium to be mixing this onto, but a little bit too much water, but that's okay. We'll just put some more glue in. So I'm not going to need a lot. So it's almost like probably the consistency of a wallpaper paste. Alright, so we've now done all that, so it's just a matter of cleaning the back up. Now you can see some of the edges have sort of curled up there, but that's fine. So liberally just coat this stuff on. As you can see, I've done it on a cardboard piece here, because it's glue's going to go everywhere, and I'll stick everything to my cutting mat otherwise. So you only really get one go at this. This one's not too bad because it's not a large sign, but so it's just a matter of taking your time. And excuse my fingers for getting in the way there. So it's just a matter of trying to, depending what you want your sign to do, you've obviously got
clapboards that go from side to side that are horizontal, so you can sort of run the bottom of the sign against that to try to get your sign as square as you can. It's a matter of getting it down to the right section. Now it needs to come this way a little bit so it's nice and square. Alright, so that's in, so it's just a matter of just lightly until the glue starts taking. Really sort of get it out, particularly the edges. You really want to get them down the best you can without ripping it up like I just did. So I might even pay just to roll a paintbrush over it to use it a bit like a rolling pin, just to get the air bubbles out the best you can. That's working alright. Now we're sort of at a point now. When I sanded it down, this sort of section here is a little bit on the very thin side, so I just got to be really careful what I do here, because I sort of don't want to tear it anymore, tear it actually away from the sign. Okay, so the next thing what I'm going to look at doing is making this sign look much more aged. So what you need to do is pick the predominant color that's sort of underneath. So my wash that I initially put on was a burnt umber, so I'm just going to use a very little bit of that. Obviously we put a green tinge through it, but I think it might look better, a better effect if I go with the burnt umber. So it's just a matter of just putting a little bit out in your palette. Now it's just like a dry brushing technique with a sponge. So it's just a matter of putting it on there. Now, as all dry brushing techniques are, get rid of all that paint, or a lot of it anyway, and then you just start stippling it on your model. So particularly start working around particularly the edges where I think the wear and tear in the paint is going to be more predominant. Now I'm not going to go overboard here. I'm really going to work it in the edges where it's torn, because it's only a little sign. It's very hard, very easy to sort of go overboard with it. So yet again, you only sort of get one sort of go at this. This is obviously a little bit of an experimentation regarding whether you do your weathering underneath first or put your signs on first. So I've done a little bit of weathering to start with, but so that's sort of where we're at with the sign. Might just put just a little bit more on the middle there. This next part, I should say, is going back in with some pastels or some weathering type chalk. So the first one I'm going to do is like a rusty red color. So rusty red, I'm going to do a dirty brown. Sorry, disregard. I'll do this burnt umber because it's very close to the colorings underneath, and then this light sort of slate grey type color again. Now just be very careful that the last section and your signs fully dry. So what I do, I just go into the wife's boudoir and I end up just getting her hairdryer out and just lightly drying over it. So from here we use the same sort of short stiff bristle again, and it's just a matter of we're just going to start doing some streaking with it. So it's just a matter of always sort of going in the one direction, sort of all parts of the sign. And obviously this is very subtle, so it's just a matter of building up here your colours. So from there, it's just a matter of working all the colours through. So next one I'll use is the burnt umber. So same again. Sort of just streaking it through. So it's almost like mixing these colours through as well to sort of tone that first rusty red one down. This is obviously only a real small sign, so you can sort of see the technique that's happening there. So that's probably it at this point in time. I might just put a little bit more burnt umber, go back in with the burnt umber. I just think some of this red here is just a little bit overpowering. So I'm just going in with some pastel chalks because I'm finding these pigments are quite good across the board, but not so good on the sign. So it's just a matter of just another light grey that's very similar to this grey here. And then it's just, it seems to be just holding just a little bit better, these soft pastel chalks. The white colour just a little bit overpowering as well. So the beauty of these pastels, you can sort of just work different colours into them, and sort of almost like you're sort of mixing it as you go also. So that's probably as much as I'm going to do with that sign, I think, because it's quite gunged up now. So as you can see, I think looks quite nicely. Obviously a lot of rust sort of staining coming through. Probably do a little bit better colouring with the stippling of the sponge. I think try to colour match this just a little bit better, but I think on whole it's coming off quite nicely. You could probably, if you wanted to do a sign that's just starting to wear, you could probably start doing a bit more white, or even colour match this blue as the coating of the sign's gone and the colouring's going through. So on whole, I'm quite happy with that. That looks good. Okay, just as we did before, I've put the Purina sign on. I've gone through and stippled a bit of paint. Now I didn't sort of go overboard because I've obviously got, this is obviously printed on the sign already, so which looks quite nice. So off the bottom of that, I will get some of this what's it called, the rusty red colour. I won't use as much this time because I think it was just on the last side it was just a little bit overpowering, so I think I need to just tone that down a little bit and just grade it out a little bit nicer. So I think that small area, that's probably enough of that one at this point in time. So we're just going to go back through with the grey, more working that in on the blue section, which sort of suggests that the letters are running. So just on the edge of the letters here, maybe we can do that one. So this one here is a really dark grey black colour, so we're just going to work that in under the window as well, and then just have that cascading down. So that's probably enough on that one. That's actually worked out quite nicely. the way that's sort of graded in, because you've got a fair bit of rust through the sign just here, and obviously how it sort of cascades down.
That's the end of this video, so I hope you enjoyed that. Now, as you can see, I personally believe it's quite an effective way of weathering up signs and getting colours to bleed through and rust effects and the likes. So I didn't show you how I weathered up and applied the little signs, because they're exactly the same technique as the other bigger ones. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time in episode number 4, which will be putting this little kit together. Make sure you subscribe, click that little bell icon to be notified of upcoming videos. Support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook and Instagram at Model Railroad Techniques.